This is a tutorial about how to create chalk lettering on an iPad Pro using an Apple Pencil and the app Procreate. Today I'm going to be using just a standard brush that comes with Procreate. It's called Flat Marker, and I'll be showing you the settings. I'll modify the settings back and forth throughout, but I'll tell you about those steps. To begin, I'm going to create a chalkboard background, so click on Layers, Background Color, and then I'm going to turn it into a black chalkboard. Next, I'm going to season the board. So try to make it look like there's a chalky background, that the board has been used before and it has kind of been wiped clean, leaving some residue behind. So to do that, I go into Flat Marker and I turn my streamline all the way down to nothing. And then over here on the sides, I'm going to bring my brush size up to full and then drop the opacity so that it's more of a hint of color rather than full color. And then I'm just going to draw, changing my marker to white, I'm going to just draw a grid. Okay, next, up here at the top, I'm going to click on the hand smudge tool, and I'm just going to drag my Apple Pencil across, smudging this grid. I don't want to see the grid. I want it mostly to just look like chalk left over on the chalkboard. So I just kind of keep going back and forth until I feel happy with how it's looking. Okay, that looks good. You can even kind of do smudge circles. Okay. Next, I'm going to go back into my brush and I'm going to turn streamline all the way up because I'm going to start lettering. I'm going to also create a new layer, and then I'm going to drop the size of my brush and then bring the opacity all the way up to full. Okay, so that's the brush I want, so I'll go ahead and write hello. Because I have streamline locked in place, you'll see that my letters are locking as I draw. My next step, you can do a manual shadow. You can do an automatic shadow. If you look at my previous video, you can, by using layers, make a drop shadow. When I draw in this chalk, I think it looks a little more authentic when you actually draw in the shadow yourself. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to drop the opacity of my marker down quite a bit. And then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add the shadows myself. This does take a little bit longer, but I find that it looks a little bit more chalkboard-like when it's all said and done. So if you notice, I'm doing more pressure on my downstrokes, less pressure on my upstrokes to mimic the lettering that I already added. And then just look back to make sure you didn't miss anything. Okay, next, I'm going to go back to my color and I'm going to change my brush to black. I'm going to bring the size down quite a bit, and then I'm going to bring the opacity all the way up again. I'm going to create a new layer for this. In this step, I'm just going to draw a black line, adding some definition between the lettering itself and the shadow I just created. And so if you were using a real chalkboard, this is the step where you would use a Q-tip or some other lettering. Oops. You can also use an eraser, but you're just adding a little bit of definition between your shadows and your lettering. I put this on a different layer so that I can come back in with my eraser, and if you see that I've had a few mistakes where it went over, I can come back in with an eraser and just edit my black line. So let's get my eraser in here. I'm just changing things on this layer rather than erasing the rest of my color. There you have it. That is chalk lettering on an iPad Pro.